these lockdowns and contact tracing in mass, they were not able to prevent a resurgence of the disease during the winter. And the problem is that the belief that the pandemic could be suppressed through these lockdowns meant that in a lot of places in the world, people did not use focus protections of the old. They thought that the lockdowns would protect the old, but they didn't. And it has led to many unnecessary deaths among our older citizens.
I think the lockdowns are the single biggest public health mistake in history. I think the lockdowns have as Martin said, have failed to protect the vulnerable. The lockdowns has led to many unnecessary deaths, both directly as a result of the lockdowns, and also indirectly through this misplaced faith in our ability, misplaced faith in the ability of the lockdowns to protect the vulnerable.
Myself and many others, including Carl Hennigan, have been warning consistently that these policies are detrimental, that they have a very high cost, and at least that those costs should be visible and on the table before any decision is taken. And focus protection, of course, offers a kind of solution to the stark truth that we in the UK cannot afford lockdowns, nor indeed, as indeed is the case in most of the world. And the other reality is that an imperfect lockdown is actually closer to a let it rip strategy than a focus protection strategy, which I believe is easier to implement.
Yes, I think it's clear for people who care about the data that the lockdowns, as we had talked about many times, were extraordinarily harmful. There's no question that people have, 40% of people didn't get chemotherapy, up to 78% of cancers didn't get diagnosed, people forego medical care for emergencies, all because of fear. And, we have a massive public health price to pay as we go forward. It's not just that they failed to stop the infection. The lockdowns actually killed people, destroyed lives, destroyed families, and our country, more than any other country, frankly, was willing to sacrifice its children out of fear. And this is really one of the historic, epic tragedies, really, of what happened during the pandemic management. It was advocated by many of my other task force members to do the lockdowns. They got what they wanted, and it's a failure.
The international evidence and the American evidence is clear. The lockdowns have not stopped the spread of the disease. It's a respiratory disease. It's very difficult to stop. The idea of the lockdown is incredibly, in some ways beguiling. So if you just stay apart far enough, like rats in cages, we won't spread the disease. But humans are not like that. And to have that happen, we can't actually, and in fact, what's happened instead is we've exposed working class people, we've exposed poor people to the disease at higher rates. The lockdowns have I call it trickle-down epidemiology, right? We've created this sort of this illusion that we can control the disease spread when in fact we cannot, and it's failed to do so.
So for all people, have to be very careful because this is more dangerous than the annual influenza, but for children, this is less dangerous than the annual influenza. So we should have utilized that feature of COVID to protect the old with focused protection while letting younger people live normal life to avoid all the collateral public health damage from the lockdown, which are enormous. And I agree with Jay that this is the biggest public health mistake or the biggest public health fiasco in history, unfortunately.